The back there? Yeah. Good. They've all been literally carefully measured, these seats. The team were in with a huge measuring tape, like getting it all exactly 2 metres, so we're as safe
Don't know if
as...
it's live or not.
Yeah, are we live yet, Polly?
Hello, in case we're live.
Yeah.
We're live, okay. Hello to everybody who's watching so far. My name's Kusalasara, and we've got the second Thursday opening session where we've got people coming in the flesh, as well as you, all of you who are watching online. So Subhadramati is just behind the camera, so to speak, talking to some of the people who arrived at the centre, and I'm just here sitting welcoming you. So, yeah, we're getting used to having people back in the centre. Yeah, the London Buddhist Centre. First of all, when the lockdown first started, we had to really get used to the idea of teaching without people, and now we're getting used to the idea of teaching with people and the camera. Yeah, so I hope you're all well, and we're going to start in a couple of minutes, just allowing a few more people to join. We've got a couple more seats left in the shrine room, so probably 1 or 2 more people coming. Yeah, so everybody's sitting here with a nice space around their mats. Usually in the past we've crammed as many people together as possible. Now everybody's got this really lovely area around their mat, so yeah, it should be a relaxing class. We're going to start teaching in just a couple of minutes. We'll just welcome for all of you joining our live session, live streaming, and live in life, so to speak.
How do you tell us who's here, Polly, from Kusalasara can say hello?
Oh, Nina. Hello, Nina's familiar face, both from before lockdown, and she's been joining us from New York. Has anyone else said hello?
Vimala and Andy in Glasgow.
Hi, Vimala and Andy. Welcome from Glasgow. That's great. Harvey.
Quite nice, isn't it?
Welcome to you.
People from all over the world.
And Maggie.
Yeah.
Hi, Maggie. Yeah, very, very warm welcome. So make yourselves comfortable. We will have some short meditation, and then it's a Dharma class, so we'll be talking about some stories from the Buddha's life, and meditation. So make yourself as comfortable as possible so that you can really absorb the teaching and think about questions that you might want to ask.
Perfect.
Hello. Great, so we've now got our full complement in the shrine room. Subhadramati is just sitting down to join us, and I'm going to hand over to you, Subhadramati.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. So very, very warm welcome to all of you who are joining us online. How many people are with us online, Polly? 22 people online, and more might join us as we go along, so that's really nice. And we've got people from New York, from Glasgow, and lots of people online, so really, really warm welcome to you. And very warm welcome to all of you who are here in the shrine room at the Buddhist Centre. Some of you, many of you, for the very first time physically here in this shrine room, and some of you returning. So that's really, really marvellous to see you. So my name's Subhadramati. And this is Kusalasara, and this is Polly on Tech, and we all live together here at the Buddhist Centre, which is quite handy because it means we can sit close together. So we all live in a community, and Tara lives in the community, and Alex, who you met on the door as well, right here in the Buddhist Centre. So we've been doing quite a lot of teaching here online during the whole lockdown, and this is our second week of being open, the actual physical doors to all of you, and it's the first week of Kusalasara and I actually teaching in this unusual situation of having people watching us from all over the world and joining in from all over the world, and live people here as well, so this is new to us as well. So we're going to do our best to try and sort of talk to all of you at once, as it were. So the format of the class is this. So what we'll do is I'll do a little bit of introduction to the theme in a moment. Then we'll have a really short little meditation, just really 5 or 6 minutes meditation, in a way just to settle us. So some of our other classes got longer meditation, but this is just a little more of a Dharma class, more of a Buddhist teaching class. And then Kusalasara will tell us about a story from the life of the Buddha. That's what we're exploring, and draw out some of the meaning of that. Then we'll have a little 5-minute break, and then there'll be a chance for you to ask us questions. So when I say you, I mean all of you. So those of you who are watching online will be able to write questions in the chat box, and those who are here in person will be able to ask us questions by the old-fashioned method of putting your hand up. And then we'll do our best to respond, and then we'll end with a short Buddhist ritual, and that'll take us up till 8:30. So that's about the shape of it. And yeah, again, I just really particularly want to say really, really warm welcome, especially if you're here for the first time. If you're here for the first time to the actual Buddhist Centre, as I know a number of you are, and then it's just lovely to have you here in the shrine room. And if you're here for the first time to our online class, that's really great as well. So what we're doing this month, I can't remember what month it is, July, is it July? Yeah. So for July, time's gone so weird, hasn't it? So we've got a short series where we're looking at stories from the life of the Buddha. In a way, we're looking at how the Buddha responded to real life people in real life situations. And from those stories, you get a sense of what enlightenment really is. How would an enlightened person respond to, for example, last week, a mother mad with grief? How did the Buddha respond to a mother who had multiple bereavements and was mad with grief? How did the Buddha respond? So that was exploring grief. This week we've got quite a different story, and we're going to be exploring friendship. And then next week we're going to be exploring how did the Buddha respond when he met violence? Yeah. So we've got all these quite different situations. How did the Buddha respond? What can we learn from that? So that's our series. But what we'll do now is we will just have a little meditation. So even if you haven't learned to meditate before, that's fine. Just sit comfortably. Try and sit with your knees on the ground if you can, maybe astride the cushions. Polly, could you dim the lights? Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah. You just dim the lights. Okay. And if you're at home, maybe you're more like on a kitchen chair or something like that. Just have your feet flat on the floor. Good. Great. And then just closing your eyes. Maybe just taking a few deeper breaths. And the first thing to do is really connect with the contact of your body with the cushions or chair and with the floor. And see if you can especially notice the quality of contact of your body with whatever you're sitting on, cushions or chair. And And especially notice if there's any tendency to be slightly bracing yourself, slightly tensing, as if you're about to jump up at any moment. Often, even though we're sitting on cushions or a chair, we can be slightly holding ourselves off of these. I notice I do that if I've been talking, like I just have been. I'm slightly, just slightly sort of braced, as if I'm about to get up, slightly excited. So if you notice that, just see if you can get a sense of allowing your weight to drop down into the support. You can't force that, but you can really give it time and attention. Imagine, if you like, the whole base of your posture is like a big sack of rice or sand that someone's just sat there on the floor, and all the little grains are just gradually settling down, finding their level. The whole base of your posture starts to feel more and more stable and imperturbable. And then from that stable base, the rest of your torso is rising up. Spine rising up in its own natural curves. Your head just poised. Just see if you can allow your face to soften a little bit more. Softening your belly. Just noticing that your body is breathing. To make any effort to breathe. Your body is just breathing by itself. All you're doing is just paying attention to the actual sensations. Seeing if you can get closer and closer to the actual sensations of the breath in the body. Broadening your attention out again to the whole of the body. All the different sounds that come to us. Just opening your eyes, bringing the meditation to a close. Good everyone, here, very nice atmosphere, so we'll sit at ease and we'll just turn the lights up again. Good, so yeah, do make yourself comfortable everyone at home, and do make yourself comfortable everyone here. Good. Yeah, so you can sit at ease, that's good. Great. Good, very nice to meditate with all of you here in the physical shrine room and with all of you at home as well. So welcome if you've just joined us, if you're watching from home. How many people are watching us from home now, Polly?
We have 44.
So 45.
Maitri says hello.
So Maitri Bandhu says hello, one of our other main teachers here. That's very nice. Good. So so if you did join us since we last welcomed everyone, I'm Subhadramati and this is Kusalasara. We live here at the Buddhist Centre along with Polly who's on tech and some others from the team as well. And we just did a little meditation just in a way to just prepare our minds, to settle our minds, ready to hear a talk from Kusalasara. So Kusalasara is going to talk to us about an ancient story from the time of the life of the Buddha, and see, well, what does this ancient story, what's it got to say to us? We'll have a little break and then there'll be a chance for everyone to ask questions. So over to Kusalasara.
Okay, thank you, Subhadramati. And hello from me, hello to everybody online and everybody in the room. It's a really special evening actually to be doing this. So straight into what I'm going to talk about this evening. So we're exploring stories. There are many, many Buddhist stories. So really, when Buddhism was first written down, so first of all it was an oral tradition, starting with the Buddha's teaching, and that was passed on. Several hundred years later, when people were more literate, they started writing them down. And what it was a series of many, many stories sort of gathered in these books, full of stories of encounters that the Buddha had with people that he met, from princes to paupers in ancient India, and full of his responses. And one, you just have to read a few of them actually, just to get a sense of how the Buddha adapted his teaching, not the point of his teaching, but the way he taught, to communicate with different people, to communicate in a way that they could more readily and easily understand what he had to say. So today's story is a story between the story involves just two people, so the Buddha and one of his disciples called Meghiya. So one of his disciples called Meghiya, who we don't know very much about. And the theme of the story really is friendship. The theme of the story is friendship, and I sort of wanted to say something about that before we have the story, because I think many of us think about, when we think about Buddhism, and if I did a straw poll in the room, like what the associative words that come to mind with Buddhism, I reckon it would be words like peace, maybe, love, I don't know, meditation, serenity, something like that, wisdom. So I think words like this would come which is completely compatible, completely true when we think about Buddhism. And from what I know from talking to people who come to the Buddhist Centre, what they say when they come is things like, I want to learn to meditate so that I can relax. So, that equates with a sense of peace that people are looking for. So they have an understanding that there is something else that they can do with their minds, and this might apply to many of you, and understand that maybe meditation can help relax, can help calm down distracted thoughts, have a better relationship with their mind. People want to learn to focus more for different reasons. So people often want to work on their minds, or they might have read about Buddhism and are interested in the Buddhist ideas and teachings. Also often people have come through difficulty, and difficulty raises deep existential questions, and people realise that they haven't got the tools. What they've learnt so far in life isn't helping them enough to sort of address these questions. So that's another reason why people come to the Buddhist Centre and are interested in Buddhism. And I think, interestingly enough, people don't say that the primary reason for coming is friendship. And I think that friendship could be the main thing that you take to explore in your life. It could be like a quest. I think it would be meaningful and perfectly valid to rather than to say what's the meaning of life or what's the meaning of happiness or something, to say how can I be a good friend, how can I be a true friend, and put that at the centre of everything, and have a career on the side of your friendships, or have a house or pets, but friendship is in the middle. And reading these Buddhist stories, so many of them have different sort of demonstrations of friendship. That it's not just that's not just like an idea of mine. It's a serious thread that you can follow. Yeah. So this is just one example of a kind of friendship from the Pali Canon, which is this collection of teachings and stories that we're drawing these evenings from. So we're in ancient India. We'll get on with the story now. We're in ancient India. The Buddha is staying somewhere in it's a rainy season. He's staying somewhere. So the Buddha moved around India, and he had places that he would often go to year after year for different times of the year. And this place was a familiar spot for him to spend the rainy season. It's harder to travel around in the rainy season. And he had an attendant. So the Buddha always had an attendant after his initial awakening. He always seems to have an attendant. So he had an attendant. And I don't think we know very much about him. I don't think he appears in many other stories. This is the one where we really encounter his attendant, Magir. And Magir goes out on his arms round. So this is how they lived. He goes out on his arms round on his own, and as he's got his begging bowl, and as he's walking around, he's probably coming back from the village where he's got his bowl full of rice and bits and bobs, and he spots this mango grove. And it really beguiles him. It really captures his imagination, and he thinks, oh yes, I would really like to meditate there. So he goes to the Buddha and says, the Buddha's often called the Blessed One in these stories. So he asks the Blessed One, can I go to that mango grove and meditate? It really, really appeals to me. It's caught my imagination. I think I could make meditative progress there. And the Buddha says, well, just wait for someone else to come. So if you go, then I'll be on my own. And this story is told quite plainly. So he doesn't say, and I can't be on my own because blah, blah, blah. So we just get this information that for whatever reason, that the Buddha would rather not be on his own, or would rather that Magir didn't leave. But there's this little thing that happens in stories around the Buddha. So if you ask the Buddha something 3 times, he will bend to your request. So Magir keeps asking the Buddha. And he says, it's all right for you. You've attained enlightenment. You've had your time under the Bodhi tree. I'm just like an unenlightened person. And he even says that place, the mangrove grove, would serve as a place to struggle. So he's got this vision of himself sitting down to meditate and facing this struggle and overcoming it, one presumes. So I don't know if any of you can relate to sort of having a little vision of your spiritual self, like, oh yeah, I don't know, if I did that, or even not even maybe your spiritual self, but sort of a vision of yourself as if you're in a film, and it's like, oh yeah, this is all my filmed self would look great in that mango grove, and I'll sit like this, and the incense will be doing this, and so I think it's quite sort of telling about human nature that even in the days before social media, there's this sort of fantasy self being projected out by Magir about how he's going to be, how this mango grove is going to change him in a way. So he asks the Buddha 3 times, and the Buddha says, okay, so do as you see fit. And off Magir goes, and he sits down to meditate, and what happens to him absolutely amazes him. So he's completely bought into this fantasy spiritual self of his, and he's astonished to find that as he sits to meditate, that he's overcome by lustful thoughts, desire for sense pleasure. He's overcome by unkind thoughts, cruel thoughts, thoughts of hatred, and all sorts of delusive fantasies. Okay, so you might think, well, that's just a normal meditation. You should just stay with his breath. But anyway, like we've been taught. Anyway, Magir is very, very surprised to find that this is happening, and it's fun. It's sort of quite an old-fashionedly written story. So he says, "Oh, it's marvelous, it's wonderful," but it's in the old-fashioned way of like marvelous, like, "Oh, how strange that I should be besieged by all these terrible images and desires." So he goes back to the Buddha. So good on him. He does go and say to the Buddha, this is what's happened. And the Buddha, we don't really know. The Buddha probably reckoned that Magir wasn't quite ready to go off into the forest on his own and meditate. This is what I imagine, that the Buddha sort of had Magir's. He had the measure of him right from the start. But he doesn't say "I told you so" or anything like that. But what he does say, he talks about this thing of the heart's release being immature or unripened. So he says, like, if you're spiritually immature, and he doesn't mean that in any kind of insulting way. It's just like if you're at the beginning of the path, let's say, that's what that means. If you're not well practiced, then you need a whole set of conditions to help you on your way. And he makes a list of five conditions. And the conditions, I'll say them now. And the first conditions meaning practices or situations that are going to support you. So we all know that we need supportive conditions. We need nice, comfortable meditation cushions. We need a quiet room at home, and we need people to help us and guide us. So we all know that we need that, but sometimes we think that now we've got it or something, and we can do without it. But anyway, so this is what the Buddha says, like as a list of 5 things to help us mature in our spiritual life. So the first one is, what we need is spiritual friendship. Yeah, so we need spiritual friendship, and that's what we're mainly going to talk about. The second one is we need to practice ethics. So we need to be aware of our conscience. We need to be aware of how we relate to ourselves and to other people in our sort of our moral lives, really, and that are by doing that we purify our intentions and our actions. So we need ethical discipline. We need to be on our guard. And then the third one he says is about talking about the Dharma. So when we're talking, we're talking about the Dharma. We're talking about things that are going to be positive in our lives, that are going to lead us towards wisdom, and that all of our talk is constructive in this way. So the Buddha says that we need to be talking about the Dharma, and it's an interesting. Also, he just says something about not holding back. So it's not like we're talking about the Dharma but really what we're thinking is something else. He's like there's a compatibility with our thoughts and our speech. So talking about the Dharma. The fourth one is we need to have energy available, that we use our energy for eliminating negative mental states. So Magir is quite familiar with those. So eliminating negative mental states and cultivating positive ones. So we need to use our energy for that. Sounds very simple, doesn't it? And then the fifth one is cultivating insight into the impermanent nature of existence, conditioned existence. So he's got these 5 things, and they're not in a random order. So it's indicated in the text that they're sort of augmentative, and that the basis of it is the first one, spiritual friendship. And the way the Buddha explains it is if we practice spiritual friendship, then we're more able to practice ethics. If we practice ethics, we're more able to be talking about the Dharma. So one enables the next of these 5 things. And then he says also, so these stories are just filled with lists. So then he is also saying, in addition to this, you need a meditation practice that's basically not indulging in sense desire, that helps with that. And then you're practicing the mindfulness of breathing in order to focus the mind. You're practicing loving kindness meditation, which is also what we practice here. So we do these 2 practices, meditation, practicing metta, and then the final one is that we're reflecting on the impermanent nature of experience, of our experience. So that in addition to these actions, these 5 actions, we've got a meditation practice that supports it. Yeah. So really, that's the end of the story. We don't know. We don't know what happened next. I like to imagine that Magir then. I think he seemed, although perhaps there's something. One imagines that he's quite young. It's possible that he's not, but one imagines that he's quite young, enthusiastic. His enthusiasm gets the better of him. But I think he's probably also quite receptive, because he did go back to the Buddha, was very open about his experience. So, so that's the end of the story. The Buddha sort of ends the story with an exclamation about how easy it is for the mind to be caught up in this and that, that it moves this way and that way, and that a wise person doesn't hold with that. The wise person doesn't put up with a mind that does that. So it ends with this little verse. So what we've got is the Buddha talking. The basis of his teaching is spiritual friendship, and then we've also got it modelled, haven't we? We've got this relationship between these 2 people. We've got this relationship between the Buddha's attendant and the Buddha, and so that's a demonstration of a kind of friendship. Yeah. Okay. So what do I want to say next? Why? Well, I think that's what we need to explore, is that what is the spiritual friendship, and why do we need our friends? Why can't we easily just go off into the mango grove and apply the practices that we've been taught very well, and why can't our minds sort of make progress in that way? Well, one of the things that our teacher says is that no one can do our Buddhist practice for us. So, and even that's quite hard to learn sometimes. No one can do our Buddhist practice for us. No one can practice the Dharma for us. We have to practice it for ourselves. But we do not have to practice it by ourselves. Okay, so that's the difference. We have to practice ourselves, but we do not have to practice by ourselves. And that may seem obvious, but I think even this idea that we have to practice it ourselves is difficult, because sometimes I think we think if we find the right spiritual teacher or the right spiritual community, which is very, very, it's actually the best one, and that's actually, I've worked it out, that's actually the best teacher. And then we think we found the right spiritual community. I think what happens then is that we just lean on to that, and we think, oh yeah, well, I'm just with them, I'm with them, they're the best, and we forget to work on our own selves. So we do need to do it ourselves, but we don't need to do it by ourselves. And when we're with people, well, there's a real spiritual challenge, isn't there? There's oneself, and there's another person, and we've got our own worldview, we've got our own ego clinging, our own selfish tendencies, and we're the centre of our universe. Basically, that's all that means. It's not a value judgment. It's just that that's where we're located, and we're invested in our own pleasures and pains, and then there's somebody else sitting there with their own. And in a friendship, we've got enough rapport to then be using that to work on to practice with your own minds. And if we isolate ourselves from other people, it can be very, very easy to fool oneself into thinking that actually you've got a good spiritual practice because nobody's interrupting you. Yeah, no one's there to irritate you. It's when you're around other people that they confront you with your own blind spots, actually, with your own blind spots, with your own assumptions. So that's all different kinds of people. And then friends have got this ability to help us as well. If we just went through life without gathering friends, I don't think we'd really know ourselves. I was just thinking when I was writing notes for this about some school friends that I've got, who I love dearly and get on with very, very well. And I don't see them that often. But when I do, one of them will inevitably remind me of something really embarrassing that I did when I was younger. And I'm like, I just really don't want to acknowledge that was me. I'm ready to grow out of my past. And you're here to remind me that I actually did say that. So it's quite humbling. It's quite humbling. So friends can serve us in that way. But also, and this is what I really experienced in the Sangha, so my friends in around the LBC in the Triratna Buddhist community, is that they might tease me, which is a very good way, isn't it, to see our blind spots, is to be teased. But also there's this encouragement that friends can offer, like one may be in despair about a habit or something that seems to happen again and again, and our friends can say, yeah, but like, do you remember 3 years ago? It was much, much worse. And now you've worked on yourself and it seems the same, but actually you're in quite a different situation and there's much more, you've got much more of a perspective on it. So I think friends, this is what I've experienced so many times, friends can just bring that perspective on our lives that we can't ever get by ourselves. So friends can do that, and we can do that for them. We want to do that for them. So the deeper a friendship goes, the more we want to do that. And I often find it very, very motivating being around people. And if they're going through something difficult, and I think there's something, I don't know yet how to respond, but it's very, very motivating trying to work out how can I grow in order to help this person with this particular difficulty. I don't yet know how to do it. Talk to my other friends, or so this intimacy that we get in friendship means that other people's lives are having an impact on us, and we have to grow to respond not just to our own ins and outs of experience, but theirs as well. And if we're practicing, if our friends are in the Sangha and in the Buddhist community, or practicing in the same way, then we can talk about our ethical lives together, and we can say, look, I really did this thing that I regret, and this can really happen. Is that sometimes we have something that we feel remorse for, an action or something. And I've definitely experienced this. One has to be careful who one tells. So I know that if I have something that I wish that I didn't do, if I tell my Buddhist friends, then they'll say, oh yeah, I can see why you wish you didn't do that, and really hear it. Whereas if I tell someone who it hasn't got the same values as me, what they might go say is, yeah, but he deserved it, he was stupid. And then, yeah, like, you go, girl, you tell him. Or, like, oh, don't worry, they don't need that, doesn't matter. I'm imagining I stole something as this example. Don't worry. They can afford it. You just keep it, or So, but if we are around our friends who are practicing, they're like, oh yeah, I can see the direction that you want to grow, and hear how you want to be bigger. And this can happen, just a group of friends who started coming along at the Buddhist Centre at about the same time, and you can do that together. But you can also, you'll also meet people who've been practicing longer than you. So this is where one can really, my words are coming out too fast. Let me have a pause. It's very, very nice to have peer friendships, but also how wonderful to have friendships with people who are wiser than us, who have been practicing longer than us, who know the spiritual life from the inside, and really want us to grow as well. And in a way, that's what's being demonstrated in this story with Magir and the Buddha. We've got someone whose heart's release is immature, that's the words, or unripened, spiritually unripened, this chap Magir. And, in a way it's easy to laugh at Magir, but really he's like all of us. I identify so much more with Magir than the Buddha in this story. Like I'm always going to be Magir in relation to my spiritual teachers. And the Buddha is so gentle, he's forgiving, and he allows Magir in this story to learn by his own mistake. So he doesn't say, when Magir keeps trying to ask him to go to the jungle, he doesn't say, well look Magir, your heart's release is immature, so it's just going to be awful. He's like, well Magir's just going to have to learn this himself. I think that's probably the only way Magir was going to learn that lesson. So yes, you've got this sort of, we sometimes use this phrase, vertical friendship, someone who has been, someone that the younger person or the newer person or the less ripe person can look up to, that sort of relationship. And then Magir could be in a vertical relationship, friendship with someone who's just brand new, and Magir can just help them and teach them the practices. So that relationship changes in relationship to who you're with. Yeah. So really, the Buddha and Magir, they're not equals in this story, but it's not that it's not a social, it's not a status thing. It's just that the Buddha has got, the Buddha's the Buddha, isn't he? He's got something to offer Magir, and it's taking Magir a bit of time to cotton on. Yeah. And so I was just thinking about this whole list again, this list of 5 things. So it starts with spiritual friendship, and it finishes with cultivating insight into the impermanent nature of conditioned existence. Yeah, so understanding impermanence. And that's basically, Magir tried to leapfrog the first 4. He tried to leapfrog and he went straight into meditating, which is the subtlest way of understanding the impermanent nature of existence. It's the core of Buddhist wisdom. But Magir didn't have the basis of all these positive relationships and actions through which to do it. And it's only by practicing spiritual friendship, practicing ethics, going through this list, talking about the Dharma, and vigorously cultivating positive mental states and eliminating negative ones. Only by doing those things will the mind be fit enough to deeply understand impermanence. And then only by understanding that having that wisdom, having that penetration into the nature of conditioned existence, only then can you actually be a true friend. I mean, that's the ultimate friend, is someone who has that wisdom. So there's a kind of circularity to that list. So really the Buddha was able to be a true friend to Megir because of his depth of understanding. Yeah, so that's some thoughts about that story, and we haven't gone into many of the aspects of the list, but I think I'll leave it there. So what we're going to do is have a little tea. I keep calling it a tea break, but we're not having tea. It's just that's what we used to do. We're sorry. We're having a break, just a 5-minute break. So should we come back?
Just before 5 to?
Just before 5 to 8. We'll have a short break. You can leave the shrine room if you're here. And then we'll come back, and there'll be time for some... we'll both be responding to your questions about what we've just been talking about. So the camera's going to stay... The sound's going to stay on while we're on the tea break.
Okay. You can stay in. You can stay in here if you want as well. You don't have to go.
It's just a 5-minute move and just do whatever.
We should go. You see you in 5 minutes. Let's see, I like looking and see who's here. Oh, how lovely. So there'll be 2 things to look for. You've definitely got plenty of funerals and how's that? Oh, yeah. Will you be alright to sit up during the question? Yeah, very so much. Yeah, by the way, I read I also discovered Zoom. Good. Okay. Everyone. Yeah, good. That's everyone. Great. Okay, welcome back. And welcome back to all of you watching from home, or I shouldn't say watching, should have participating from home. So thanks very much, Kusalasara. So lovely to have that. It seems like such a simple story, but then there's so much in it, actually. So yeah, we've got some time now for some discussion. So yeah, this is a chance where you can just ask any questions, reflections on that story of Megiddo. And yeah, as I say, when I say you, I mean all of you here in the live shrine room, and all of you also at home. And how we do it is we'll have sort of a question from each group in turn. So we'll have a question. Maybe we'll start with if anyone's got a question from the shrine room, and then Polly will give us, if other people who are watching, who are participating from home, can write your questions in the chat box, and Polly will sort of have a look at them and maybe group them together and give us them. So, and Kusalasara and I will do our best to respond to the questions. So yeah, any questions on this story of Megiddo? Questions on friendship? Yes.
Just thinking about my own friends, I have ongoing question, don't even know how to formulate it, but along the lines, how do you relate to people who are not practicing Buddhism and are on daily in your life? And obviously you would act from the Buddhist perspective towards them, but how do you communicate when it's kind of seems somewhat different values or different approaches to daily things?
Okay, thanks very much. I might just say the question again. So the question is, how do you communicate with people who have different values, and maybe don't have Buddhist values, or just have different values? What does friendship mean in that situation? So, anyone have a go at that? Kusalasara? My friend Kusalasara.
Yeah, so I definitely don't believe that you just try and be friends with Buddhists because that's easier because you've got the same lingo or something. I think what it is understanding. It's like when you do the metta bhavana practice and the loving kindness practice, and you bring all sorts of different people to mind, and what you're doing is sort of going beneath the skin of how people live their lives and what they do, to understanding the commonality of we all desire happiness, and actually we all do respond to love even though some of us find that difficult, some people do find it difficult, or they might not like your way of expressing love, that is what people need. So we might get it wrong in how we communicate that, but it is getting beneath a sort of, even the surface of what religion one is. It's to a sort of commonality of human beings wanting to grow. Yeah.
That's good, isn't it? Because it's almost like asking oneself the question, how do I be a friend? And if you really deeply ask yourself that question, well, I think as Kusalasara is saying, you really could be a friend to anyone by really imaginatively connecting with them. As Kusalasara said, what's connection with the deeper than the surface? And interesting enough, I think that's definitely true. And the more stories of the Buddha and you encounter, you see that the Buddha used the Buddhist term skillful means. He found the point of connection. Like he talked to a farmer using metaphors of farming. He talked to, he found the way in. So it's like finding, well, what does interest that people? What are their values? Every day has values, and we will be connected in the deepest values. And how can we imaginatively connect with it? It's hard though, but yeah, good, really good question. Thank you. Not uncommon question. Yeah. Good. So now it's time for people participating from home. So we got.
Andrea wants to know, how do you choose a spiritual friend?
So Andrea wants to know, how do you choose a spiritual friend?
I don't know if I've ever really thought of it like that, but it's a good question. I think maybe you don't just choose one either. I suppose I'll just say how things have worked out for me, which is that I've come along to Buddhist centres and met people that I seem to have a rapport with, or that I've really admired, and got to know people like that. And sometimes I think it's a bit sort of, especially if you don't know someone that well, and then you think, oh, but I really like you, and you have to be bold, don't you? And just be like, oh, could we meet up? Or, try to create conditions where you get to know people. And I just like rubbing along with people, so I've tried to I've lived for nearly 13 years in a Buddhist household, so it's not like I've chosen spiritual friends, but I've put myself with people and would become friends in a spiritual context. And then there's more formal ones like Subhadramati. I definitely did have some choice because Subhadramati ordained me, so that's like I was talking about vertical friendship. So she's my teacher and preceptor. She gave me my name, and she inducted me into the Triratna Buddhist order. So that was just like thinking, whose really helps me, and whose practice do I admire. I'm not saying the choice was completely mine, because she might have something to say about that as well. Yeah. Yeah, well, maybe what I will say was I really responded to that initial request from Kusalasara before she was Kusalasara to be the person to be her preceptor, but that itself was on the basis of we lived together in a community for I can't remember how many years, few years. And also what I want to say about that friendship, it's good you brought that in, Kusalasara, because there is a mutuality to it as well. And it certainly doesn't feel like one way to me. Yes, I've been practicing quite a bit longer because I happen to be quite a bit older. So there is that element. But yeah, it really feels mutual. And then more recently, we've done projects together, and we've set up a new community together, and that feels like just a completely shared endeavour that we've done together. So I really like that element, especially in our own tradition, that there can be this element of verticality, but
but that itself is fluid, you know, that it's not like those positions aren't fixed, you know, like I'll be the one, you know, going to Kusalasara for advice. You know, as we say, we just did this project together. Also earlier on, Kusalasara mentioned, you know, having a friend where you talk about your ethical life with and even confess with. So every single week we do that together. Every single Tuesday night we spend time together, like saying, well, the things we've regretted in the week. And that's a mutual practice. We're both doing that and helping each other to learn how to, you know, be more skillful in the future. Yeah. So I think that's right. To go back to Andrew's original question, it's probably not a choice. I'm sure Andrew didn't mean this like, I don't know, it's not like something, you're not getting your friends sort of off the peg, as it were. So, you know, it's based on an affinity. And so, yeah. At the same time, I always remember someone saying, I like to say this example, like if you were to choose two spiritual friends, choose one that you think likes you and one that you think doesn't understand you. And I think the principle there was not to be taken too literally, but it's quite good to have some people, at least in our life, who provide that bit of irritation almost, that bit of grit. I think in ordinary life we can often choose our friendship group between people we think have got the same opinions or think have got the same sort of values or so on. So, you know, you often even see that in friendship groups. People often, I don't know, vote for the same party, sometimes even dress the same, you know, or have the same outlook. I think what you're trying to create in Sangha is something deeper than that. So you might end up with something you think, blimey, I never thought I'd end up like, I don't know, sharing a meal with a person who voted for that party or for, you know, who has these opinions. But actually there can be spiritual friendship there. Yeah, so I quite like that. Yeah, somebody who you think likes you, somebody who you think doesn't understand you, probably is quite a good, I don't know, says something, not to be taken literally as I say, but says something about what sort of Sangha friends are. Good, so anyone else from here, from this room? Question on friendship, or yes?
So I have a question about friendship and kind of the non-self, the impermanent self.
On friendship and
the non-self and impermanent.
Okay.
Self. And I really liked what you were saying about friendship being like a central practice of Buddhism. And I wonder how that, you know, if I think about my friendships, sometimes they reinforce my sense of self and permanence, or I think like, as you said, like, I've been friends with that person for X number of years and they're like this, or they do this. And so I'm wondering how do you grow intimate friendships without reinforcing the kind of static idea of me or them?
Okay, so that's a very, very good question, isn't it? How do you friendship but without falling into either fixing fixing yourself or fixing them. Actually, Tara, could you get me a water? I seem to have a little thing in my throat. Fixing yourself or fixing them. I mean, I think in a way, the fact you're asking the question, you're probably halfway to answering your own question. If a friendship's really going to have this term spiritual friendship, I mean, saying spiritual friendship even makes it sound a bit rarefied. You can say spiritual friendship is a friendship where you're helping each other to grow. You know, that's what we really mean when we say spiritual friendship. It's a much better way of putting it. Thanks very much. Thank you. And that means if we're really helping each other to grow, that means allowing each other to change. That sounds easy, but sometimes it's quite hard because the change in your friend might be a change that's, as it were, moving them away from you. So that's a test, isn't it? If they seem to be growing in a direction that might even mean, I don't know, a physical move away from you, are you going to be open-minded enough to to be able to allow that. If your friend says, actually, I realise the next thing that I need to do is, I don't know, go and set up like Timbuktu Buddhist Centre. Am I going to be big enough to actually, if that seems like a good thing for them, to actually be big-hearted enough for that? So I think, but I think we really need to allow our friends to change, allow our friends to grow. Sometimes it can be threatening if people change. Sometimes people can be threatened by our change, but actually sometimes we can be threatened by people's change. So I think that you really one needs to be alive to that for it to be a growthful friendship. I don't know, what would you say about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And maybe I just sort of keep going back to the metta bhava, and then also what you were saying about imagination is that perhaps I think you're right about, like, with especially long-standing friendships, there are just habits. So they don't have to. Those habits don't have to be a bad thing, because they're like a way into familiarity. But then just sort of examining ourselves and examining where we're not bringing in perhaps some newer way of thinking that we've got, or a newer mode that we're just resorting to habit. Does that make sense? The sort of sometimes we can hide our growth from from people that we've known for a longer time, just because it's much easier to slip in old ways, and it's a bit like that with family as well. But I think that the real test of one's Buddhist practice is a visit to one's parents. And sort of, that's also fertile ground for growth, like just sort of remembering one's own changes and sort of bringing them more into the friendship, not letting the friendship stay the same, something like that.
That's good. Yeah, thanks. Really good question. Good. So, another question for us, Polly?
There's a few questions about whether should we avoid friends who aren't conducive to our practice, and whether as we practice we move away from old friends.
Okay, so that's two maybe related questions. Like, as we practice, are there even people, maybe even friends, who we should avoid? And what about that we might move away from some friends? So maybe I'll start with the first one. So it sounds a bit bold, doesn't it, saying are there people we should avoid? At the same time, I think what the story of Megillah is bringing out broadly, as Kusalasara says, is that conditions do matter. I think all of us, kind of this side of insight really, it's as well for us to take on board that the conditions that we're in really affect us. And the conditions we're in means who we surround ourselves with. It affects us much more than we probably give credit for. I mean, in other words, basically we're much less individual than we care to think. I'm much less individual than I think, and that's like after, 30, 35 years of practicing. I think hopefully I've grown a bit more individual, but I'm still terribly influenced by who I surround myself with. So I think what I would say in response to the first question is there might be, at least for a time, certain situations which probably mean certain people you think, actually, I'm not strong-minded enough for that yet. I'm not individual enough yet. If I hang out with those people, I'm just going to fall into old habits that aren't good for me, that aren't serving me. I won't be able to resist it, I think that's part of self-knowledge. That doesn't mean cutting off from people, because I think, ideally, one would be working towards, yes, you could be in any company and you wouldn't you still be able to keep mindful, you still be able to keep loving, you still be able to keep positive. Like a Buddha, it wouldn't matter what company. If you put the Buddha in, an enlightened being, you put them in the, I don't know, people doing all sorts that I won't care to mention. The Buddha would still be the Buddha. In other words, they would still be honest, they would still be mindful, they would still respond with metta. But like I'm definitely not the Buddha. If you put me with a bunch of people who are like really, I don't know, even like in speech, maybe moaning a lot or gossiping a lot, like probably won't take much for me to step back into that. So it's as well to be aware of that, at least until one has grown a bit more self-sufficient. Again, our own teacher, Bhante Sangharajta, he said something like this side of insight. So insight, when we say insight, we mean a sort of certain point. It's not yet enlightenment, but it's a kind of point of your momentum's very, very strong. Your dharmic momentum's very, very strong, and you can't fall back from practice. So Bhante said, until that point, other people are going to have more effect on you than you have on them. Yeah, so that's the basic fact of the matter. They're going to have more effect on you than you have on them. So you need to be careful of that. So that's what I'd say to that. I don't know if you've got any.
No, I think that's it. Yeah.
Well, maybe you did the other bit then. So what about?
Oh, yeah.
What was it? Other friendships that you? What was it? Move on from or?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, as you put more effort into your practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people do experience that. But, it's not. I don't think one needs to deliberately have that in mind. I mean, of course one doesn't, but I think what mostly happens when that does happen for people is that they find that they're in a friendship or a friendship group where that permission to grow isn't allowed, where that isn't really okay. So perhaps your friendship is based on a certain activity that you no longer want to do, or and I mean the obvious one which many people do talk about is when they cut down drinking as they want to meditate. They want to meditate more. They realise that drinking is no longer compatible with getting up at 7 and having a clear mind. So the pub going lessens, but those friendships that are built around pubs struggle to survive. And so that isn't. And then there might be one or two that surprisingly are allowed, that do change and do sort of adapt. So it's not like. Of course those people won't be able to cope with my meditation, retreaty, new kind of life. It's just that does happen, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's just one of the poignant things about life, actually, that one's path takes one away from people that we felt close to. But you never know when it's the end of the story as well, and when someone else might be sort of come back into your life after long times away. Do you want to add anything?
Well, only just to acknowledge that can be a bit of an uncomfortable phase in one's journey if one takes up meditation and really wants to, start living in a different way, maybe giving up things like drinking or drugs or something like that. There can be an uncomfortable phase where the old life doesn't seem to fit anymore, and some of the old friends, but one hasn't yet found really deep friendships, say here at the Buddhist Centre and so on. I remember finding that really uncomfortable. I remember actually sitting, I remember where it was, I was sitting just about here where you're sitting, and someone was giving a talk from that side all about the wonders of spiritual friendship, and I was crying. I was saying, well, it all sounds so wonderful, but I haven't got any friends, And it was definitely an uncomfortable phase, where, I was in that sort of in-betweeny sort of phase. And I think, so anyway, maybe just because maybe it was only me who had that experience, but I just want to acknowledge that it can be hard. And But that is what we are trying to create here. It's harder since we've had to close the physical doors. That's why I'm really glad we're starting to open again. But we're trying to create an environment where we can grow together, you know, as you were saying, whereas we can practice together. Hopefully, you know, I was in a meeting today where we were talking about our actual retreat centre where we've had to close, you know, but hopefully we can open that again gradually, and that's a place where we can start to build friendships with people that will encourage our growth. But you know, as Kusalasara was saying, it's not going to be a hard and fast thing, or they're my old friends and these are my new friends, but there'll be hopefully something more natural or more organic will happen. Yeah. Okay, so I think maybe there's time for one more from this shrine room group. Oh.
I just wanted to pose kind of the opposite question.
Yeah.
I really empathise to that sort of from your own life, that you know you're in this in between. And I actually worry more about pushing people just away for the sake of it. Like not that I'm close to it. I actually think it's almost wrong to do that because you know that is not compassionate. That is not probably involves some form of wrong speech if you try to do that. So how do we actually practically have and develop compassion for people that think differently, that we don't even consider our friends? But I think that's sort of a challenge that Buddhists or a Buddhist view could be very helpful in sort of a climate that is quite divided during these times as well.
Yeah, so in a way that's kind of a bit full circle, isn't it, to the first question, how do we have a response to people with different values? Well, I guess again that's what metta loving kindness is. It's seeing the actual whole person, even sort of beneath, as it were, the views that we might even disagree with, the behaviour that we might not even condone. It's like seeing actually there's more to that person than that, you know. It doesn't, you know, we can have metta, we can have loving kindness, you know, in a sense without even liking someone, you know, but we're relating to them as a human being. It's like we're letting the life in us respond to the life in them, which means by not cutting off to them, in a way we're also not cutting off to ourselves as well. Yeah. I don't know if you've got anything to... Yeah.
I think that's just really important, that thing of like if we do cut off to things that we disagree with, we are putting a limit on our own, actually our own view of what we can grow to encompass as well. So that is a restriction. So it's never like a compassion for myself versus a compassion for other or something like that. Working in that way just expands one's ability to I don't know what what is it that they want to expand? What am I trying to say? Expands one's heart, I suppose. That's it.
Yeah, that's good. Actually, you had your hand up at the back, so let's have your question as well. We've just got time.
Yeah, I was just trying to, I don't know how to formulate into a question. So I was just thinking of like, if we're using different, like if people are in different places and phases in their lives or in friendships, and we use that to grow, how can we kind of process when maybe friendship is veiled, like, or toxic, like when there's a toxic element to a friendship, but maybe we're seeing it as maybe an opportunity to grow, but maybe it isn't, maybe it's like determining, I don't know how to formulate what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, okay, so you're saying what?
If friendships are no longer maybe friendships, or they're not good for you, or maybe they're having a negative impact on you, but to determine whether, like, let's say, for example, if you're eating with somebody who voted for a different party, right, versus that, versus someone who's maybe like a toxic friendship that stunts your growth or is having a negative impact on you? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, so I think that's a good word. So the question is, well, how do you navigate in a friendship or a relationship that's actually, in some ways, you're thinking is harmful for yourself? And I think navigation's a good word because there's no, there's no definite answer to that. Like, so, it might be that you're able to work within that friendship. It might be through communication with the person, through work on like building one's own individuality so that, one becomes a stronger, more individual person. Or it might be that even for a time, there might be a time where there has to be a separation, Probably the sort of litmus test is, if it was me in that situation, I'd think, can I stay in a positive mental state? And when I say positive, I don't mean happy necessarily. I mean a state of mind that's creative, a state of mind that's able to stay loving, rather than if every time I meet that person, I just know that I get so reactive, I'm harming myself and harming them. Then I think, okay, I need to take a break from that. I still would always hope that break wasn't permanent, I would then try and work a bit more on my own mental states, and see. So in a way it all circles back to this thing on conditions, So say just general conditions. So say you're trying to meditate. Here's an analogy. So say here we are, those of us that are here in the London Buddhist Centre, we try and make the room really nice. There's a shrine, the room's quiet. So that's really good for meditation. So you try your best to give yourself the best conditions. But say some people at home it might be quite noisy and stuff like that. So you've just got to work with what you've got, So it's probably the same with friendship. You don't want to think, it's all got to be so rarefied that I can just be friends with some people that, that I really feel fine with. That would be one extreme. But the other extreme, I suppose the other extreme with meditation would be, okay, I'm going to go and try and meditate in the middle of Westfield Shopping Centre. Do you know what I mean? Because my mind should be able to do it. That's just expecting too much for yourself, So it's the same with people. You don't deliberately set out to surround yourself with the most difficult people possible. But at the same time, you can't kind of think, it's got to be so rarefied that I can only have people that are really supportive all the time. But, sorry, I'm probably making this sound more complicated. You're going to have to always play it by ear and think, what am I capable of at any one time? Do you see what I mean? So I think that's why navigation basically is a good word. Sometimes you have to steer a bit like this, and sometimes you have to think, actually, no, I can't handle this just now. I just need to, build my own resources a bit more. That can change for me, not just person to person, but the mood I'm in. Like, I've just been on retreat, I feel quite buoyant, so situations that might be difficult, I feel quite buoyant and able to meet. But before I went on retreat, I was, less buoyant, so I was less able for, difficult situations. So just keep navigating. Good. Okay, so nearly time to wind up. So thanks for all those questions. Thanks for people participating from home. Thanks to everyone here. That's my favourite bit, actually, the questions. Well, Kusalasara's talk as well. That was the best. But it's very, very nice to have you joining in. So just a couple of things to say, and then we'll finish with a short ritual verse. So 2 things. So one is we're having this massive, really exciting online retreat. The summer retreat is 8 days long, the 2nd to the 9th of August. So it runs from a Sunday evening right through to the next Sunday. And on that retreat there'll be morning meditation. I'm leading the 7 o'clock and the morning meditations. There'll be meditation input in the mid-morning, there'll be study in the afternoon, there'll be evening sessions like this, a bit longer. And it's the really exciting thing is it's not just the London Buddhist Centre, it's other centres from the UK and Ireland joining in, so it's a sort of mega retreat. I think there's already 500 or probably even more people booked on. So we're creating this whole kind of massive community. And, you know, just like there's people here tonight from India and New York and Scotland, you know, the retreat will have even more. So really, really encourage you to sign up for that retreat. It's completely on a donation basis, so just sign up. Oh yeah, the minute you sign up, you'll also be eligible for a free Dharma book, an e-book called The Yogi's Joy, which is a fantastic book. So do sign up for that. Polly's posting the link, and for those of you here, you can just go online at home, sign up for that. And then I just want to say about our culture of dana, which means generosity here at the centre. So those of you who booked, we did ask for a booking fee just to, in a way, that was just because we want to make sure that the seats reserved, that people do come and sort of sit in them, as it were. And asking for a booking fee is a good way of doing that. But on the whole, we just have always tried to run this whole Buddhist centre under a culture of giving. So, you know, Kusalasara and I are here teaching tonight. It's just an expression of our friendship and also our Dharma practice. On Polly and Tara and all the others on the team, it's the same. They've just come here, you know, just as an expression of our Dharma practice. That's the culture we're trying to create, this culture of generosity and this culture of friendship, of helping each other to grow, allowing each other to grow and believing in each other's growth. So we really like you to participate, invite you to participate in this culture of giving. And the easiest way to do that at the moment is to give financially if you can. Really helps us as well because, you know, we've lost like loads of our income. All our retreat income is completely, as Ippolit, our treasurer, said. He said, we're burning, that the retreat centre is just burning money because we haven't got any income. Not literally burning money, but you know what I mean. We've lost all our income. So please, if you are in a position to give, to contribute, please consider a donation of £10 for the class. No, not for the class. That's all wrong. It's not for the class of Subhadramati. The class is free. Please give us £10 if you can. And Polly's just posted the link there, the donation link. And if any of you have come along tonight feel inspired to give an extra donation, then the card machine's outside, and it's absolutely, the class is free, so that's absolutely fine as well. So good. So, and then all that remains is for our transference of merit. So this is a ritual verse we say at the end of the class, just to say that everything we do, all our meditation, all our Dharma talks and practice is for the benefit of all beings. And it's in call and response, so I'll read a line and you can just, if you wish, join in by repeating that line. And maybe we'll turn that big light out, Polly, if that's possible. And if you're joining in from home, do join in with this verse. Transference of merit and self-surrender. May the merit gained.
May the merit gained.
In my acting thus.
In my acting thus.
Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
Go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings.
My personality throughout my existences.
My personality throughout my existences.
My possessions.
My possessions.
And my merit in all three ways.
and I merit in all three ways.
I give up without regard to myself,
I give up without regard to myself,
for the benefit of all beings,
for the benefit of all beings,
just as the earth and other elements
just as the earth and other elements
are serviceable in many ways
are serviceable in many ways
to the infinite number of beings,
to the infinite number of beings,
inhabiting limitless space.
inhabiting limitless space.
So may I become
So may I become
that which maintains all beings,
that which maintains all beings,
situated throughout space,
situated throughout space,
so long as all have not attained
so long as all have not attained
to peace.
to peace.
Good. So that was coming to the end of the class. So just going to say to good night to everyone who's participating from home. So we're going to turn off the live stream now. So goodbye,
Night.
everyone.